Welcome to the explainer. So picture this. A massive storm is raging outside. Heavy rain is coming down in absolute sheets, and you are relying entirely on your home's flood control system to keep things dry. Well, today we're diving into the ultimate battle of the backups to protect your home. We're going to break down the primary defenses you have when the unexpected happens. We'll be using an incredibly insightful breakdown from the plumbing and HVAC experts over at Smart Housing Systems. So let's just get right into it. I want you to imagine a really anxiety-inducing situation for a second. The rain is just pounding against your windows, the wind is howling, and the water table right outside your foundation is rapidly rising. And then, suddenly, bam! Everything goes dark. The power grid has completely failed. So what actually happens to your primary flood system when the heavy rains hit and the power goes out? Well, your basement, which is usually this safe, dry storage area, or maybe even a cozy, finished living space, instantly becomes incredibly vulnerable. The exact system designed to keep all that water at bay is suddenly totally offline. It is a pretty harsh reality, but a primary pump is literally useless without electricity. Whether you've got a standard residential sump pump, a massive heavy-duty backflow per runner, or even a really complex stormwater pumping station, they're all completely dependent on the grid power that drives them. When that electricity cuts out during a severe weather event, the only thing standing between a working, secure barrier and a basement filled with standing water comes down to one single thing: your backup system. So the absolute crucial point here is knowing exactly what kind of backup is stepping into the ring when your primary system goes down. It's the ultimate tale of the tape: finite power versus endless pressure. Over in the first corner, we have the battery backup system, which relies on stored electrical capacity. And in the opposing corner, the water-powered backup, which harnesses the physical force of water itself. Now, each contender has distinct strengths, specific trade-offs, and very different installation requirements. We are going to examine exactly how each of these challengers actually works. Let's start with our first contender, the battery backup. Essentially, this is a system that supplies stored electricity to your pumps and controls using sensors and automatic switches to respond immediately during an outage. And that word, immediately, is the absolute key here. These systems are paired with highly responsive level sensors and alarms. So the very moment the water starts rising and the main power is dead, an automatic transfer switch just kicks right in. It takes over the job entirely, so you don't have to wade into a pitch-black basement with a flashlight to manually flip any switches. Now, this system comes with some serious superpowers. Because it switches on instantly, it's highly reliable in a pinch. It also speaks the language of modern smart homes, so it easily integrates with your control electronics. You can even configure it to handle targeted electrical loads. That means you can engineer it to run specific equipment for a strictly defined duration. Plus, because the whole thing is modular, it's significantly easier to retrofit right into your existing plumbing and sump pump setup. You aren't going to have to rip everything down to the studs to get it installed. But as we know, every hero has their kryptonite. The biggest pragmatic issue here for sure is finite endurance. It relies entirely on its battery capacity, so its runtime is directly dependent on how much power the pump draws and the cycling frequency. Basically, how often the pump actually has to kick on during the storm. If the grid failure outlasts your battery's charge, the pump shuts down. Game over. Furthermore, battery performance naturally degrades over time. You simply cannot just install it and forget about it. It strictly requires routine inspection, regular testing, and eventual replacement to make sure it's ready when that big storm finally hits. Okay, now for our second contender, which takes a completely different approach to flood mitigation: the water-powered backup. This relies entirely on stored water pressure, gravity head, or a hydraulic circuit to move water without a single drop of electricity. What is absolutely fascinating about this is the core concept itself. It literally uses the physical energy of water to move water. It is entirely independent of the electrical grid. So when there is no electricity, no fuel, and limited maintenance access, this system taps right into your municipal water pressure to create a suction effect that empties your sump pit. Because of that highly unique mechanism, the water-powered system comes with its own incredible set of superpowers. The most obvious one: zero reliance on electrical power. This translates directly into exceptional reliability during extended grid failures. Think about it. If a massive hurricane or a huge winter storm knocks out your neighborhood's power for days, and not just a few hours, this system becomes the clear hero. It'll keep your basement dry for as long as your municipal water pressure holds up. Plus, it entirely eliminates those annoying battery aging and degradation issues we just talked about. And that leads to a drastically reduced ongoing management burden for you as a homeowner. But let's be real, we have to look at the practical limitations too. It's kryptonite. This system strictly requires specific municipal water pressure or sufficient hydraulic head, which is really just a fancy way of saying enough gravity-fed water pressure to function. So, if you are on a private well system that relies on electricity to pump water, or your city's water pressure severely drops during emergencies, this backup will absolutely fail. Secondly, they are highly complex to design and install correctly. It requires very careful, precise integration with your existing plumbing and control logic. It is definitely, for sure, not a simple modular plug-and-play setup. So, looking at the decision matrix, how do you actually choose? Well, it really comes down to your home's specific constraints. If your neighborhood mostly experiences short, frequent power outages, the battery backup is likely going to be your best fit. But if you're prone to days-long, extended outages where the grid just vanishes, water-powered is probably the way to go. You also have to weigh the maintenance. Are you willing to routinely test batteries, or do you prefer the set-it-and-forget-it, low-maintenance nature of a water system? And finally, for installation, batteries offer a much easier retrofit, whereas water-powered systems demand that complex plumbing integration. But hey, why choose just one, right? A super fascinating side note from the source material is the hybrid strategy. Many cautious homeowners actually use both options side by side to cover absolutely all of their vulnerabilities. You combine the battery backup to get that immediate, smart electronic response the exact second the power drops, and then you utilize the water-powered mechanism as a secondary failsafe. That extends your protection far beyond the battery's designed runtime. It is literally the ultimate belts and suspenders approach to keeping your property completely safe. Now, regardless of which route you choose, there is one non-negotiable rule here. Professional design and installation are absolutely essential. Ensuring safety and strict code compliance requires a qualified plumbing professional to properly engineer, size, and verify the whole setup. They have to critically assess pump curves, exact electrical load capacities, local building codes, and of course, your site-specific water pressure conditions. Guesswork here simply isn't an option if you want dependable flood mitigation when it actually counts. Which brings us to our final thought for today. Is your home ready for the next outage? Take a second to think about the age of your current backup battery, or whether you even have the municipal water pressure to upgrade your infrastructure in the first place. Because honestly, the very best time to evaluate your flood mitigation isn't when the heavy rains are actively flooding your street and the lights are beginning to flicker. It is right now, while the weather outside is calm. So take a close look at your basement's defenses and make sure you're prepared. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and hey, stay dry out there.